Hello and welcome back to the Who's He Podcast YouTube channel. We are now drawing near to the end of Season 2 of The Bad Batch with Episode 14, Tipping Point. And while this episode does come back to what's left of Clone Force 99 on Pabu, it actually begins with Echo and some fellow Renegade clones rescuing other clones that are being transported to Dr. Hemlock for reasons we don't find out. Well, not in this episode anyway. But the Imperials are determined that the data on this transport ship does not fall into enemy hands and begins a data wipe before Echo and his team reach it, and an Imperial officer commits suicide rather than being questioned. Fortunately, Echo is able to retrieve certain information before all is destroyed, but only one person can access the encrypted data that they have: Tech. Meanwhile, Crosshair is kind of back on his feet, but in the custody of the evil Dr. Hemlock, who tortures him for information on where Clone Force 99 are, and more importantly for Hemlock, where Omega is. Crosshair is able to make a brief escape and manages to send a broken transmission out to the Bad Batch with the message Plan 88, the seeker you have to hide, they are after, before being gassed and taken back for more torture. On Pabu, the team are helping to rebuild the planet, but it appears that they still haven't made their minds up if they will stay on Pabu for good. Meanwhile, Tech is teaching Omega to fly the Marauder when they pick up Echo arriving on their scanners. After a brief reunion, Tech decrypts the data and gains intel on Dr. Hemlock and his unorthodox experiments, and also pick up Crosshair's message, which Hunter believes could also be a trap which Crosshair did to them before on Kamino in the last season. So, another not so action-packed episode again this week, but this is definitely sowing the seeds for the end of this season, which appears to be uncovering and potentially resolving another mystery. Just what does Hemlock want with the clones? Well, it appears that the clones being decommissioned is not going to be resolved this season. It is more or less certain that this will be picked up again if the Bad Batch gets a renewal. But while the rescue of the clones from the Imperial ship was very well done, with the initial attack on the Imperial transporter not looked out of place in one of the Star Wars movies, this was about it action-wise, and that's not such a bad thing. Not all episodes have to be full of blasters and lightsabers, as long as it holds the attention of the viewer, and this episode certainly did that for me. What the Bad Batch isn't afraid to do for what is essentially a show aimed at young adults is to go to dark places. And this week, that dark place was the torture of Crosshair. Hemlock is certainly a hissable villain. I'm hoping that he will get his comeuppance before the end of this season plays out. But a reason was needed for Crosshair to re-evaluate his decisions regarding the Empire, and Hemlock was certainly that. At one point in this episode, Hemlock was even holding his own against Grand Moff Tarkin, so he's not a character to be taken lightly. But is Crosshair to be trusted? From what we've seen this episode, he could have just as easily given up the Bad Batch before the torture began. But with him making an escape and sending the message, the viewer is expected to believe that he is on the level. But from the Bad Batch's point of view, they obviously do not trust him, and with good reason, really because of his betrayal on Kamino at the end of the last season. Now, there is one thing that is in the back of my mind, and that is one of the Bad Batch going to be killed off this series? One of the themes running through this season is family and how the breaking up of a family unit has affected Omega. She was devastated when Echo left the group a few episodes ago and was clearly delighted when he returned this episode. She was also shocked at the end of this episode when Crosshair's message was received. So to really drive home the loss of a family member, would they dare kill someone off? Well, I think this could happen, and my money is on either Crosshair or Echo to bite the bullet. Both have gone their separate ways from the squad, and while it certainly looks like the original gang will reunite, I can't help but feel it will end badly. However, there is one other mystery this episode, and that is Dr. Hemlock's assistant, Emery. I have a strong suspicion that she could also be a clone. When Crosshair is trying to make his escape, she practically tries to stop him, knowing that it will end in failure and make his situation worse. And I think that Crosshair knows who she is, and he only stuns her rather than kills her, as what he did to the stormtroopers in the room. And she also has a New Zealand accent, so she must be a clone, yes? Well, we shall see. So we only have 2 more episodes to go, and next week Disney are dropping both episodes at once, so next week will be my final review of this series. My only hope is that this series doesn't end on a disappointment. We still don't know what will happen with Sid, and just where did Commander Cody go to. Hopefully, we'll find out.